the Freedom Fix podcast. Today is the 9th of January. It's Monday. Got a little weekend catch-up for you here. Last night at the Golden Globes, Meryl Streep ranted on about Trump. Trump responded with a classy response on Twitter. Just kidding. He lambasted her publicly in about 140 characters, maybe 280. Also, Israel mourns yet again, and the media buries it. Speaking of burials, there are a few teams not in the NFL playoffs any longer. That would include the Dolphins and the New York Giants, along with Detroit, who is used to losing, as well as Oakland. They're gone. You're done. Let's see. We got coming up next week in the NFL playoffs. You got the Pats versus the Texans, the Steelers versus the Chiefs, Seahawks versus the Falcons, and lastly, a pretty good matchup. It's looking like it'll be the Packers versus the Cowboys. I know this is kind of off subject of conservatism, but hey, a lot of us like football, so let's just take a few notes and touch on a few of these different games because there was some interesting things happening. The Packers, Aaron Rodgers, yet again. I can't stand this guy. I'm just a hater. It is what it is. He's always winning, and my team, the Chicago Bears, hasn't done so hot against them. He keeps throwing Hail Marys. This dude cannot stop getting touchdowns over 40 or 50 yards. He just throws it up at the end of the game, and for whatever reason, every single time his receivers come down with it. I can't explain it. I don't think he could explain it. All you can do is throw the ball as far as you can throw it and keep it in play. But beyond that, what other factor do you have when it comes to completing those so consistently? I mean, there's 7 or 8 guys just going up for a jump ball. Anyway, it's done. The Packers won, so they'll be playing the Cowboys, and the Cowboys are a hot team, so we'll see there. The Giants, maybe next year. Let's see. Also, tonight is the Clemson versus Alabama national championship game. Sometimes it is nice to get away from politics, and of course, we're rewarded with a repeat with Clemson and Bama, and Bama is a repeat every single year. They can't stay out of the championship game, it seems. So, let's get to it. Oh, wait, there was one more thing I forgot to mention. DC cops, 6 of them, suspended. You'll never guess why. Well, you might be able to, but it has to do with the president. It's a pretty alarming reason. I'll get to that later. So, in Hollywood creating more Republican news, this is becoming one of my favorite segments. Let's just talk about the Golden Globes last night. I mean, do you expect anything other than to be lectured by a bunch of liberals and leftists at an event like this? I mean, it's Hollywood lefties just fawning over other Hollywood lefties and how great they are and how morally superior they are to all of the rest of the flyover country. Of course. So when Meryl Streep took the stage, she couldn't help herself. Getting a Lifetime Achievement Award, she did nothing to help calm the political waters last night during the Golden Globes, opting to double or even triple down on all of the rhetoric about Donald Trump on a week when rhetoric likely led to a hate crime against a disabled man in Chicago. Do we expect anything different from Hollywood these days? I mean, we got PSAs pouring out of Hollywood each week. Celebrities have been promising to move to Canada since this time last year, probably even before that. The sad part is that so many impressionable people take cues from these people who read other people's scripts for a living. Can the left get any more hysterical? All of this sanctimonious lecturing coming from the side that was hauling hundreds of people by the busload to Trump rallies with the sole purpose of causing disruption and unrest. I remember a concert in D.C. back in October. I think it was Miguel and Sia. I don't know how I got dragged to it. Well, it was the wife. But it wasn't horrible. But I'll just say there was one moment that was really annoying. It was when Miguel decided to take a 15-minute intermission to lecture the crowd. I don't know. I didn't even know who Miguel was. I guess he's like some leftist singer from California who hates Donald Trump, at least from the 15 minutes I heard from him. He got the entire crowd to start F Donald Trump chant. And, the majority of the room, primarily millennials in the bubble of that is this beltway near D.C., they all complied. So after this speech from Meryl Streep, what did Trump do? Well, he fell right into the trap, firing back at Streep only hours after the comments. His ego is too big to simply let the left humiliate themselves in their hysteria. Trump responded by calling Streep one of the most overrated actresses in Hollywood. That is such a Trump thing to say. Like, who would have, if you had like a money on that, you wouldn't win hardly anything, because it was like huge odds. I mean, ridiculous odds that he would attack. Trump gets attacked. He returns with a character attack of the person who attacked his character. Wow. Shocking. Okay, so in essence, nothing has changed. Hollywood is full of people who are out of touch with reality, who believe they know better than you, and Donald Trump is a bloviating wrecking ball. Just another Monday in America. But I have to say, the self-adulation has become almost too much to take. Hollywood and the liberal elite will continue to romance each other. There's no doubt about that. And also, one final note about Streep and her sense of moral superiority. Back in 2003, she gave a standing ovation to Roman Polanski's Oscar win. When he got up, she got up and gave a standing O to that guy. So if you don't know any history about Roman Polanski, he is a convicted, not alleged, he is a convicted child rapist. He raped a 13-year-old girl. So here is Meryl Streep applauding Roman Polanski back in 2003.
Goes to Roman Polanski for the pianist.
Yep, and there she is, applauding away. Not everyone was standing, but she chose to get up and give the standing O to the child rapist.
The Academy congratulates.
So I just really wanted to point out the hypocrisy there. No shortage of it in Hollywood. But, it's like lecture conservatives on their views, lady. Yeah, you're a sterling example of virtue, hardly blinded at all by your own self-adulation. Hollywood can shut the hell up. They're almost all hypocrites. And this stuff is all sweet revenge to most conservatives nationwide who have been talked down to for so long by these people who live in an alternate reality. This reminds me, just last week, there was talk of, some conservatives who were trying to prove a point about how out of touch and in a bubble so many liberals are. So someone mentioned how the Ford trucks or Dodge Ram it's not Dodge Ram anymore, I don't think, but whatever. How they mentioned how pickup trucks were the top 3 selling vehicles in the United States. Like the highest ranking sedan was like number 4. So somebody, a conservative obviously, asked the media, I believe, if they knew anybody who owned a pickup truck, one of those top 3 selling trucks. And none of them could say that they do, but they argued it because that's what they do. But they argued that it was stupid to even ask a question like that. Well, that question isn't stupid. He's trying to illustrate how much of a bubble liver you are. You're just living in a bubble. And it's not that it matters if you actually know somebody that's in a pickup truck. It's the fact that you don't just demonstrates how much of a bubble you live in. So Hollywood's much of the same. If people in DC are living in a bubble, people in Hollywood are like on a different planet. So, enough of that. I'm done with Hollywood for the day. I hope you're not disappointed. On to Islam being Islam news. So, over the weekend, there was an attack in Jerusalem, Israel, that is. So, what do France, Germany, and Israel have in common? Well, now they all have terrorist attacks that have been carried out with trucks. Over the weekend, a Palestinian killed 4 and injured 15 Israeli soldiers by running them over with a truck, even backing up to try to do more harm after the carnage had taken place. A terrorist with a name too long to even bother mentioning careened through a group of Israeli officer cadets. The attack came only mere days after the UN concluded that parts of Israel are contested territory. The UN has been anti-Israel for some time. Can anyone reasonably say that these two nations are equal? A two-nation solution is and has never been, or has not ever been, a goal for Palestine. When France is attacked, people change profile pictures to flags. They issue, the thoughts and prayers every single time. They're very quick to do all that stuff. Again, with Germany, and by the way, they also get like full-blown coverage on the media. When it's Germany, same thing. We all remember the attacks because it's all you saw. And we all know, if I'm not particularly large on social media, but I know whenever this stuff happens, social media is quick to come to the profile picture changes and the posts about prayers and all that, which is great. But what happens when Israel is attacked in the same exact fashion? It gets buried in the news cycle. Meryl Streep is likely getting more coverage than the Israel attack for her rant about President-elect Trump. The mainstream media have such an anti-Israel stance, it can hardly get more obvious. The entire left despises the mostly homogenous, deeply religious state and democracy of Israel. It goes against all their beliefs, and in many ways, they're just echoing the views of their celebrity president. Decades of foreign policy have effectively been flushed down the toilet in this final-ditch effort of the president, like a foreclosed homeowner who scratches and claws the entire way out until the bank takes the damn property back. Next up, in leftist infect everything news, why are schools failing in America? Well, former New York teacher of the year, the whole year, there are 12 months in a year, this guy was the number one. His name is John Taylor Gatto. I like this cat. He wrote a book entitled Weapon of Mass Instruction. So in this book, he outlined how education is failing our youth in America, and I think most people would agree with that, regardless of politics. He said, but the reason, though, he says, is that we are educating people, but they're not exiting the system with well-educated minds. He exposes that the state-run education system is just an indoctrination center, basically. There are a bunch of indoctrination centers for these kids in our future. Gatto also says the move to dumb down students is rational and deliberate. He emphasizes connections as being critical in the learning process, and Gatto believes that a well-educated mind comes from having strong connections to different human lifestyles, complex experiences, intellectual ideas, and self-ideas, or knowledge of oneself. So with the present state of the education system, Gatto believes that the elites, the liberals, have deliberately disconnected much of these connections. even from a political perspective, the education in America is densely liberal, and that's a colossal understatement. As recent as like 2014, over 60% of university professors identified as liberal or far left, with less than 15% identifying as conservative or far right. And that's according to the Higher Education Research Institute over at UCLA. So what's the scary part here? I mean, that's pretty scary to me already, but the scary part is that the liberal trend in professors is on the rise. It's not even leveling out. Like, it's getting worse. And it's taking place in a very short amount of time. It wasn't until roughly 2004 that liberals breached the 50% mark. In one decade, the needle already moved to above 60%. Liberal professors outnumber conservative faculty at a 5-to-1 rate. And it's affected performance too. Performance across the board. Let's just take math and science for starters. Let's look at that. In 2015, only 25% and 22% respectively of 12th graders scored at proficient levels for math and science. I mean, that's pathetic. Like, what are we doing, you know? So this leads me to the rise of homeschooling. And I was doing a little research on this, and it looks like homeschooling has actually had a bit of a uptick lately, both in numbers and in the outcomes. So academic performance for homeschooling, check out some of this stuff. Home educated typically score 15 to 30 percentile points above public school students on standardized academic achievement tests. The public school average is the 50th percentile, you know, ranging from 1 to 99. And then let's look at like the inner cities where, you know, you've had a lot of struggling African American students, a lot of dropout rate or high dropout rates, and, you know, struggling to achieve the proficient level on testing. So in 2015, a study found black homeschool students to be scoring 23 to 42% percentile points above black public school students. I mean, that's a huge increase. Maybe, you know, it's better to have a close eye on your kids and have a positive influence on their life and be able to shape them exactly how you want to shape them, not how, you know, the school wants to shape them. You know, beyond that, home educated students typically score above average on the SAT, ACTs, increasingly are being actively recruited by colleges. And even on the socialization front, home educated are doing quite well as well. You know, typically score above average on measures of social, emotional, and psychological development. You know, homeschool students are regularly engaged in social and educational activities outside of their homes and with people other than their nuclear family members. They're commonly involved in activities such as, you know, field trips and political drives, church functions, sports teams, volunteer work. You know, and adults who were home educated are also more politically tolerant than the public school in the limited research done so far. But that's interesting to me, that adults who are home educated are more politically tolerant than public school educated kids. Is that, I mean, it's not really that shocking because I think they're being indoctrinated in there. You know, it's pretty extreme what's going on in these schools. It's an echo chamber, and it's pretty much turned into indoctrination centers. I mean, when you're talking about like 60 to 70+% of people are considered far leftists. What about like the next 20% on that scale? Like, they're probably still leftists. They just aren't as extreme. You know, now you're at like almost 80% of or more are all on the left side. You have absolutely no diversity of thought, and it's going to reflect in, you know, the outcomes for these students. And ultimately, you're going to have a lot of sheep. I swear, I'm telling you, if you're a millennial and let's just say you went to school at any time in the last 25 years, you've been through the K through 12 system in America, public school, the default, I would say, is that you would be a liberal. It's the easiest, most default thing to do. It's like just toe the line, follow exactly what the government told you to do, follow exactly what the teachers told you to do. You're going to turn into a liberal. I almost guarantee it, unless you pull yourself out of the mud. That's why so many people who are conservatives are such, they have such conviction behind it. Like they truly are conservative because they know that they had to pull themselves out of the muck. It didn't just happen in many cases. So, next up, let me just get on this this DC cop situation. I'm hesitant to use this title, but DC police traitors. So, social media getting people in trouble yet again. This time, for a change, it's actually not a conservative. That's pretty shocking. It's not a social justice warrior thing. It's a bunch of cops who were talking on social media about how they want to, or if there's anything to happen to Donald Trump during the inauguration, all of them would not protect him if he were to be attacked. So that's sort of a big deal. You can't be, law enforcement and swear to serve and protect and then, basically say you won't protect the President of the United States. So all 6 officers have been put on no contact and been suspended, which is a given in any situation like this. But here, let me say why this is poor operational security, and this is going to explain why there's a danger with this. So when you identify yourself on social media and you're in whether the military or the police force, if you tell the world where you're going to be, let alone your mindset, you've just exposed a huge weakness to your organization and the Army or the Navy or the country as a whole. So all 6 of these people who openly said that they wouldn't stop an attack, they've just singled themselves out. If a terrorist were to come in and say, I'm looking to assassinate somebody, well, now you have 6 weak points who've individually all come out and said that they wouldn't do anything. So that's why, if these people keep their badge after this, it's a disgrace. But we'll see. Currently, they're suspended, but it's really poor operational security because this is the stuff we deal with in the military, all the time. Like, you can't, go down the same route or whatnot, because if you do, the enemy starts to learn your weakness. And in this case, the weakness is broadcasting it out to the whole world on social media. So, it's a pretty serious deal. And, the investigation will probably be swift. We'll see. So, Secret Service has a close eye on this. It's all being kept hush-hush. You probably won't hear about this on mainstream media. And keep an eye. Just know you heard it here, because I'm up here in D.C., and I'm telling you, it happened. If this happened in almost any other country, it would be a story. If it happened in America, it should be front page. It should be talking about this on CNN and MSNBC and Fox News. All of them should be talking about this. But it's being kept hush-hush, and it's buried by the left and the mainstream media like every story is. I'm going to have to pass on the dumb leftist comment of the day. I'm going to push that out until tomorrow. I got to do a quick show today. I had to cut short. But I will see you tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in. This is Freedom Fix Podcast. Enjoy your freedom, folks.